In an age where so many young men are lost, confused, don't know where they're going, I recommend one really good story to read. And that is an absolute classic, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now I know what you're thinking, it's a classic, it's kind of been around for a long time, and it's a fantasy. You know, so many young men want to read self-help books these days, or they go online onto YouTube and, you know, follow the Tate brothers and so many others. But I'm going to tell you this right now, these self-help books, these figures online, only give either a very shallow or a very distorted view on what it means to be a man. And that's why I recommend The Lord of the Rings, because J.R.R. Tolkien uses probably 3 main characters to reflect masculinity. And now, I'm sure there's plenty of others, but we're going to focus on these 3. Aragorn, Faramir, and most importantly, Borirmir. Sorry, I just like saying all the names. So, for Aragorn, Aragorn is the king. He is the king of Gondor, well, to be the king of Gondor, and he has all this responsibility on him, and all this power, and yet he doesn't succumb to the power, but he puts himself under the authority of that power. He is what we would call the integrated male, the integrated masculine male, where he does a lot of the stock trade aspects of being a male, where he's fit, he's fierce, he knows how to fight, but he knows how to be empathetic. He knows how to listen and to understand and to lead from a place of compassion rather than from brute force. This is probably one of the key reasons why Aragorn is actually a very respectable character in The Lord of the Rings, if not one of the reasons why he's the main character as well. This is then followed by Faramir. Now, Faramir lives kind of in the shadows of his brother, Borirmir, but a key thing about Faramir is that, as characters go, he's wise and in his decision-making and his discernment of what to do. This is seen where he looks at the Ring of Power, but understands that he shouldn't become overwhelmed by it, that some things just should not be touched. He has the wisdom, in a healthy way of saying this, of not caring what others think, but rather to make the right decision, not for himself, but for others. That's why he fights. Unlike his brother Borirmir, Faramir fights because he has to fight for others. He's fighting on behalf of those that are behind him. Whilst Borirmir, who we're going to get into in a second, fights because he loves it. Now, Borirmir is a very interesting character. Borirmir is a man's man. He fights hard, he goes hard. He loves to put himself in front of others, in front of the weak, to defend them against the threat. This is a good characteristic. This is a very honourable characteristic, but it's a very rash, harsh characteristic that, as we discuss, leads to his downfall. You see, Borirmir grew up in Gondor, as you know, he's one of the key leaders of Gondor, and he's the heir to Denethor, who's the watchman of Gondor. And the key thing is that Gondor has been at war for generations. The nation has been bleeding. So for that is the environment that Borirmir has grew up in. He's learned that you have to obtain power to survive. And sadly, as we look at this is what becomes his undoing. We see that his attitude towards the ring, the one ring to rule them all, the powerful ring, is actually what drives him nuts, because he sees it as the means to destroy the enemy. He's the kind of guy that sees that the means justify the ends. And he sees the one ring and justifiably argues that they should use it to destroy the enemy. And why not? As the quote here that I have from Borirmir, as he's discussing it at the council, it is a gift to the foes of Mordor. Why not use this ring? It makes sense. The ring is so small that he, in his blunt force, misjudges it, and therefore makes a false, foolish decision. And this becomes his undoing. As you'll see later on in the story, because of his actions, he breaks up the fellowship. He gets after Frodo, trying to steal the One Ring, and loses that trust. If the story was to end there, Boromir would be remembered as a villain. He'd be remembered as the coward, as the man that put his own interests first. But that's not where the story ends. As we read on, he fights off the orcs and the Uruk-hai, trying to defend the hobbits from his own foolishness, from his own actions. In fact, it's an act of redemption that we see here from Boromir. That is why it is so fantastic, because it shows us that even when we fail, we can stand up to receive that redemption. It is not too late. And that is what Boromir does. He seeks forgiveness. As we see here, at the end of his life, Aragorn and the others, they find him, and he goes like this. They have gone, the halflings, the orcs have taken them. I think they are not dead. Orcs bound them. He paused and his eyes closed wearily. After a moment he spoke again. Farewell, Aragorn. Go to Minas Tirith and save my people. I have failed. No, said Aragorn, taking his hand and kissing his brow. You have conquered. Few have gained such victory. Be at peace. Minas Tirith shall not fall. The last dying act of Boromir was an act of selflessness. It was an act of masculinity in its rightful place, an act of service. That is where masculinity shines the most, when it is in service of others. Now, J.R.R. Tolkien was a Catholic and a strong Christian, and a lot of Christianity flows through the story of Lord of the Rings. Same with his friend C.S. Lewis, where you see Christianity flow through the stories of Narnia. But in this particular incident, we don't see Boromir as a Christ-like figure, but rather someone shaped and redeemed by those actions. He is flawed. And just like all of us, we are flawed. But in the actions we take, we too can be redeemed. And I see so many young men who have just thrown in the towel, who are lost online. And I think to myself, come on, there is hope. And it's not necessarily in your actions, but on the one who's taken it upon himself onto that cross at Calvary, so that you can be redeemed. Yes, you're going to fail. You know, failure is one of those things that we kind of go, oh, you failed, that's it, no more. No, the Christian life is that every day you're going to fail. You're going to fail every single day. But that's where grace comes in. And that's where you have to come before the throne of God every day at the cross or where Christ had died and beg for that forgiveness every day. That is the Christian life. It's renewal every day. And for the Christian man, for the masculine man, there you need that. You need to have that renewal every day to be able to face the day. Now, for Boromir, yes, he redeemed himself, but he actually didn't see the aftermath if the ring got destroyed. In fact, he died. But still, that is the mindset we have every day, that we do these selfless acts. not knowing whether or not you're going to see that sunrise. We do these acts because that is what Christ has done for us. So for the young men out there, I really recommend Lord of the Rings. Yes, it's a cool fantasy. Yes, it's a way to escape. But it's really good to kind of look at these characters. And yes, they're fantastical characters. But understand how they can impact our lives. How we can improve ourselves. And that's why I recommend The Lord of the Rings.